All right. So I think what I was saying was we talked to many organizers at many different organizations, and we found that a lot of people were struggling with the same set of issues. One was that a lot of different tools were being used, but those tools weren't talking to one another. And so there was a sprawl of data and different kind of silos of data. And so organizers sometimes had to go from one tool to another just to get a sense of one particular supporter or donor or volunteer. And that was just taking a lot of time. Another is that we found that many organizations had gotten very good at the sort of scale of organizing in a sort of big broadcast way. So they could very easily send out an email to 1 million people and optimize that whole process to get them to sign a petition. But when it came to kind of the most important supporters, the volunteers, the donors, the kind of conversational one-on-one relationships that you need to build that base, were often neglected by the tools. So we found that many organizers were kind of starting their own like spreadsheets to keep track of all of their activists, and then those things weren't syncing back to the main systems. And then the third thing we found is that there was a lot of missed opportunities. So basically, there's a very short window after someone takes different kinds of actions, whether it's signing a petition or making a donation or kind of clicking through to a website. You often have a very short window to actually take advantage of their interest and their enthusiasm. And with many organizations, they didn't have the capacity to actually follow up with someone, let's say, after they RSVP'd or after they made a donation, or when they signed up to volunteer, let's say. And we decided to build some tools to address these issues. And yeah, that's what Daisychain is all about. Nathan, did I leave anything out on the highest level? That mute button somewhere. There we go.
Oh, sorry, I was taking notes, and so it was in another window. I feel like the other thing is just the diversity of different ways that supporters want to interact with organizations, and that so we've sort of gotten like really good at email. Most of the groups that we've talked to, but then there are all these folks on WhatsApp and all these other places. So like, how do we reach people across mediums, which we're just starting to explore, like how that works, but it was sort of key to our vision from the beginning.
Jump in. Okay, I will share my screen and just walk you through what Daisychain is all about. Before I do that, I will say one thing, which is that it is quite early in the process for Nathan and I building Daisychain. So it's an exciting time because we're right now talking to lots of organizations who are giving us really good ideas for the features and integrations to build next. And so as I'm showing you what we have, it would also be really helpful if you guys could think, hey, this is maybe a little bit useful now, but to be really helpful, we need this feature or this integration. We have this set of early clients that is providing us with just like a lot of feedback and feature requests, which is so helpful for us right now. And so we're just really excited to partner with people who can keep pushing this product forward. So yeah, wanted to make sure we said that at the outset so you guys can think about how we can continue to evolve Daisychain to be really useful. This is Daisychain. You all can see my screen? Yeah, great. So as you can see, it is a pretty clean and simple interface. One of the things that we found when talking to many organizers is that the tools they were using were often overwhelming and kind of not always intuitive. And we wanted Daisychain to be something that was really kind of calm and easy to use. And so you can see there's 4 basic sections here. The inbox is where you manage all the one-to-one conversations that you're having with supporters. Pathways is this framework that we've built for doing stage-based organizing, and we'll dig into what that looks like in a couple minutes. People is sort of this very simple, lightweight, like CRM layer where you can see a list of all the people that are in Daisychain and the basic information about them. And then we have a whole lot of things tucked into settings. And I think what probably makes sense to do is jump into settings first and then sort of work our way through these different sections. And so I'll just pop into the settings area. And the first place I'll start is integrations. So Daisychain comes with sort of native integrations with a handful of tools. So you can see ActBlue, Action Network, Every Action, ControlShift, Mobilize, and Zapier. Some of these tools are probably not relevant for an international context. So Mobilize, for example, or ActBlue, these are the big event and donation platforms in the US. They're particularly favored by political campaigns. But other tools like Action Network, Every Action, and ControlShift do have a lot of international usage. And then Zapier is a tool to connect Daisychain to lots of different things. Nathan.
And I also say this is an area in particular where we're just getting started.
Yeah, this is the starter set of integrations.
Yeah, and so I know that this doesn't have high overlap with a bunch of things that GPI uses across. I mean, saying what even like the network of areas uses is a complicated question to answer sometimes, at least in my head, as someone outside the organization. But I think this is like the area where we're rapidly adding more and deepening these. So
yeah, I heard HubSpot a couple times, which was interesting and something we haven't built out an integration with yet, but I know they have a robust API, so doable. Okay, and if you dive into any of these integrations, you can both do basic configuration, but you can also create automations. And the automation feature in Daisychain is a kind of simple framework for making sure that you can get data into Daisychain very easily and then take action on that data in smart ways that are very efficient for organizers. So I clicked to add an automation for an Action Network integration, and you can see that there's 4 different triggers that are listed here for starting an automation. It's when there's an event RSVP, a donation, a signature on a petition, or just a form submission. And this is probably a good place to say that Daisychain isn't trying to replace all the kind of existing tools that many organizations use. We see Daisychain as plugging into that existing ecosystem, and that's one of the reasons why we wanted to build in this automation feature. So let's say we have an automation using the Action Network so that when a donation is made, we can follow up quickly with a personalized message, a text message that will go to that supporter's phone. So I could click to just send a message, but what I want to do is actually add a delay, because if you send a message immediately, it feels very robotic. And even though, yes, this is automated, we think there is a value in having a kind of more conversational feeling. So I'll say, let's add a delay of 20 minutes, and then let's send a message. And then that message will just say, hi, first name, John here with Daisychain. Thanks for your donation. Text me back with any questions. We can add that. And then the next thing I'll do is create a card and add it to a pathway. This might not make a lot of sense right now, but I'll dig into it in a moment and you can see what this is all about. So I'm going to add this card to a pathway called Invite Donors to Volunteer. I'll add it to the first stage of that pathway, and I'll also make an assignment. So again, all of this stuff will click into place in just about a minute. Okay, So now I think because we just made an automation that involved pathways, I'm going to jump right into the pathway section and into that pathway that we were using. And this is the invite donors to volunteer pathway. As you can see, it's broken into 4 different stages, and pathways are just these very flexible systems that you can use to organize people in different stages of their supporter journey. And so you can see each one of these people is a recent donor, and we can click into any of these people. We can see basic information about them. We can send them a text message. We can leave a note for other organizers, and this is going to be visible to anyone else using Daisychain. And then you can also manage the assignments. And what we found is that there's often an accountability issue with organizing projects where it's not clear who is responsible for kind of communicating with and following up with different people. And so we wanted to bake assignments right into the DNA of Daisychain. So this is the basic functionality of a card and a pathway. You can drag people along to these different stages, and you can also view pathways in a few different ways. So right now I'm viewing everyone in this kind of stage-based view. You can also say, hey, I just want to view the people that I'm assigned to. So if I click on my initials here, you can see it filters the pathway just to be the people that I'm responsible for. And I can very quickly, let's say I want to invite all of these people with a message. I can quickly start a conversation and type out a message that goes to everyone. And if I hit send, that message will go out to all of those people in that pathway. You can also view pathways in a list-based view. So this is something that organizers have told us is really helpful if they just want to, call through everyone on a particular list. Instead of seeing the stage-based view, you can just see everyone here with their phone numbers and sort of work your way through the list that way.
Cool.
Basically, how you can both do that type of branching and also build automations around it. So
For sure.
Pretty easy to imagine a situation where you say, hey, when someone has signed 2 petitions and made a donation, we want to actually flow them into this particular stage, and they'll stay in that stage for organizers to communicate with for a period of time. But maybe if they then RSVP to an event, maybe they would automatically get pushed into a different stage. So all of that is stuff that we're excited about and have not started building yet.
Yeah, it can get really complex, I'm sure.
Yeah, it can get very complex, and actually we're excited to team up with organizations who are like, hey, I'm ready to do that kind of like complex both automation and then like logic based branching.
For sure.
But yeah, we haven't gotten there yet.
The part that we have started to do is pull stuff in from other tools into those cards. So we can do stuff. We start to add these like power up features that are powered by integrations. So for example, you can add, if that person was a ControlShift petition starter, you could see the sort of petitions and interact with the petitions that petition creator had created in their card, and sort of move the cards along.
So like pulling those actions in, not just like pushing actions out.
Exactly, yeah. So this is a pathway with ControlShift integrated. And so you can see that my petition to make the sun set later, which I started when I was feeling very gloomy about the short days, is syncing up with ControlShift. I'm the only signer so far, which is surprising. Thought this would be a more popular issue.
I'll sign that petition.
Thanks. But yeah, you can see this is a way you can sort of manage petition creators along a kind of stage-based organizing journey and not have to go back and forth between ControlShift and Daisychain to do that. Okay, I think I'm going to jump on into the inbox. So the inbox will look very familiar if you've, used a peer-to-peer texting tool, or even just, WhatsApp or iMessage, where you can very quickly look at all the conversations that you're having with folks and navigate between them. You can view the inbox by assignment if you want. And in addition to being able to see all the conversations, you can also view and edit information that's in the right-hand panel here. So if I wanted to add a sort of like random note, I could add a note here. I can modify the assignments as needed. And right now, when we've talked to organizers who are trying to kind of like layer in messaging into their organizing operation, again, they're sort of switching between their CRM, where they're manually looking up a supporter, seeing what recent actions they've taken, and then going back to Daisychain, or sorry, going back to whatever tool they're using, like WhatsApp. We're excited about the idea that within Daisychain, organizers will be able to see all of that information, the contextual stuff that's often really important for the conversation that people are having. Okay, I think I'm going to pause there. I know we only have like 15 minutes left. I want to make sure we have plenty of time for Q&A and to talk about kind of the road ahead here. Oh, Anastasia, I think you had a hand up.
Yeah, I just wanted to quickly ask, where does this
Yeah.
conversation happen on the user's end?
So these are SMS messages. So it'll just get delivered right to the user's phone. Nathan alluded to the fact that we think Daisychain will be a multi-channel tool before long. And so we've talked to actually a bunch of organizations in Europe where SMS is never used, but WhatsApp is like the thing that's always used. And so we know there's a fair amount of appetite for something like WhatsApp. We also think we will inevitably add some sort of email functionality into Daisychain as well. But right now, Daisychain is just a single message, single channel tool, and that channel is SMS, I think. The two-way sync and integration is something that we've started to build with some of our integrations. So the ControlShift integration, for example, if you assign a mentor in ControlShift, that will sync over to an assignment in Daisychain. But some of the other integrations are a little bit more one way. Right now, the use case that we've optimized for is more the, hey, someone just donated, someone just RSVP'd, we want to follow up with them quickly. But we know that as we've dug in with some of the early clients that we're working with, there's a lot of hunger for more of the two-way synchronization and integration. So that's definitely something that is on the roadmap.
Yeah, it's a lot of work, as I'm sure you all know. Trying to get all of these pairwise connections going is, I think, where a lot of the code in the app is going to end up living.
Yeah, so building on that, I guess my question is, like you alluded to kind of the CRM-ness of this tool, right? And so are you expecting or already seeing organizations to start using Daisychain as like this like single source of truth for all of these different supporter records? Or is the idea that it's really just, you know, the thing that helps other things talk to each other, but like you should really be using like a fully fleshed out CRM as like the place where that lives?
Good question. Right now, we actually do have a couple of clients who have used Daisychain as their kind of primary CRM and source of truth. Those, I would say, for the foreseeable future, there's going to be not that many of those because of the fact that Daisychain is currently SMS only. Many organizations want a tool that at least does email. And because of the sort of, we're just relatively early in the process. We were surprised actually when these clients said, hey, we love Daisychain, we're just going to use it for everything.
It was not our intent.
was not our intent. We were in some ways flattered. We were like, oh, it's great that it's already far enough along that some organizations want to do that. The organizations that did want to do that, they were, I should say, quite small, and they were newer. And so these were organizations that are like, oh, we don't even care about email. Like, our people don't do email. We're only doing.
I was going to say, if you're working in the US and you're working with the younger population, then that is a perfect use case for that. But yeah.
There was an organization actually that we've been working with that isn't collecting email at all, because the way they source their people are through Facebook lead ads. So they're running all of these lead ads on Facebook, trying to find local leaders. And then when people fill out the form on Facebook, it captures their phone number, that gets automatically pushed into Daisychain, and then they're kind of leading those people on a journey towards leadership using Daisychain and just using texting and phone calls. And we thought that was a pretty cool use case, but not a common one for most organizations.
At any sort of scale of doing other stuff, I think that we're going to be a bit of glue and a bit of this like high touch authentic connection with like the most valuable people, and like how do we help people do things like just as something happened in another tool rather than being the tool that everything lives in, at least for now. We have grand ambitions, but that's where we are at the moment, not trying to replace everything.
So the thing that we have started to hone in on with larger organizations, because we know, number one, adoption of new technology is tricky. It can be scary. It can be like feeling like taking a big plunge. We have been basically saying, hey, let's not try to like move everything over to Daisychain immediately. We basically say, hey, let's find one program or one chapter of your organization and do an experiment. Put this tool in the hands of a handful of people who have a specific use case that is very well aligned with what Daisychain does, whether it's that, higher touch organizing, one-on-one messaging, and then run that pilot project, see how that goes, and then kind of build out from there. So we worked with a national organization in the US that has, I don't even know how many chapters they have, but hundreds and hundreds of chapters. And to get started, just to kind of test it out, they said, hey, we're just going to start with 2 of our chapters. We're going to see how it goes with them on this kind of very tightly scoped organizing project. And then we're going to take a break. We're going to debrief and see how that went. And then if we feel like it went well, then we'll start to kind of scale it out across the team. So, Luca, I would say that, in answer to your question, one path forward, if you think that there's maybe a match here, is to say, hey, this specific NRO that has a willingness to kind of innovate in this way, maybe they really want to experiment with one-on-one messaging, or they want to really do some testing on what the window of opportunity is after someone donates, to actually engage them in an ongoing relationship and say, hey, we're going to kind of design an experiment, a test case around that, and then implement it just with that specific team or that specific office, and then grow from there. On our end, we're happy to work in sort of a very high touch way with all of our early clients. And so whether that's on collaborating on sort of like experimental design or doing, multiple trainings with different stakeholders, we're just at a stage right now where we're excited to do that kind of thing. We love talking to all the early customers we have. And so yeah, I would say finding a specific team at a specific NRO, or maybe it's a part of the work that you all do at the international level, and yeah, scoping something pretty tightly, running an experiment, and then taking a step back and seeing what we learned.
I think that the projects at the moment that work best on Daisychain are ones that there's something that happens, either a street team canvas gets converts someone, or door is knocked, or something like that. Someone takes action online. We can respond to that event, and then have some sort of relatively high touch interaction that the organization is then having with those people. I think we're going to expand in other directions, but that's our sweet spot at the moment.
And I would say that one other aspect of Daisychain that we've seen is that for organizations that have a lot of staff and are operating at a relatively small scale, Daisychain can be a good fit. But it can also really work for organizations that maybe don't have a huge number of staff people who have capacity to be having one-on-one conversations, but maybe they have a bunch of volunteers who are interested in doing something for the organization. Because Daisychain, as you saw, pretty streamlined and easy to use. So if you have volunteers that you trust, you can say, hey, our staff isn't going to be the one, moving people along this ladder of engagement through a series of personal conversations, but we have a team of 100 volunteers, and we're going to use the assignments in a really smart way so that all those volunteers get plugged in, do really meaningful work, and yeah, and use Daisychain directly.
I guess the other thing is like, are there particular challenges inside Greenpeace that any of this resonates with, right? Because we're also at this point where we're kind of just trying to figure out like where we slot into a bunch of like work that folks are trying to accomplish. And
Yeah.
But is there a way to fragment the access of the people there?
This is a great question. The very short answer is not yet. But we know we've got to build it. We've basically been waiting for any of our clients to say, hey, we actually want to do the thing with the volunteers, but we're scared to open up the data in that way. And the most obvious way to do this with volunteers is actually just saying, hey, there's maybe certain fields that volunteers never get to see. And volunteers will only have access to the people that they're explicitly assigned to. So you saw the assignment feature. You can very easily imagine a volunteer being responsible for 10 people, for 20 people. And when they log into Daisychain, they only see 10 people or 20 people. So that's how we would, Nathan and I have talked about this a little bit. That's how we'd probably approach it, but we'd want to build it, in partnership with a client that would be actively using it so that we can make sure we're building something genuinely useful.